Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Chana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Prachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prachachana Ranjana Nandana Prachachana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanacharya Tiravanacharya Yamuna Tiravanacharya Yamuna Tiravanacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Ki Jai. Ich glaube, ich kann auch vom Handy lassen und so. Für heute. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayahudiraye Nashta Praeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtikir. Hare Krishna. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 27. And today we read text 6 and text 7. 6 was actually last Friday, or last Saturday, and then 7 today. Tasyam ajanayat putran Puranjanam Puranjanayam Puranjanaha Puranjanyam Puranjanaha Shatanyekadasha Virat Shatanyekadasha Virat Ayusho Ridham Attatyagat Ayushoritam Atatyagat Ayushoritam Atatyagat Tasyam ajanayat putram Puranjanyam Puranjanaha Shatyanyekadasha Virat Ayusho Rid Atatyagat
Tasyam achanaya putran Tasyam achanaya putran Puranjanyam Puranjana Puranjanyam Puranjanaha Shantanyekadasha Vira Shatanyekadasha Vira Ayushortam Atatyaga
Ayushoritam Atatyaga
Tasyam Achanaya Putran
Tasyam Ajanayat Putran
Puranjanyam Puranjanaha
Puranjanyam Puranjanaha
Satanyekadasha Vira
Satanyekadasha Virat
Ayushoridam Atatyaga
Ayushorit Atatyagat Vaishnavis Tasyam Achanayat Putran Puranjanyam Puranjanaha Satyanyekadasha Virat Ayushoritam Tasyam within her Ajanyat he begot Putran sons Puranjanayam in Puranjani Puranjanaha King Puranjana Shatani hundreds Ekadasha 11 Virat O King Ayushaha of life Ardham half Attaha in this way Atyagat he passed. Okay. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The great sage Narada then addressed King Prachini Bharishad, O one whose lifespan is great, Virat. In this way King Puranjan begot 1,100 sons within the womb of his wife Puranjani. However, in this business he passed away half of his lifespan. Purport. In this verse there are several significant words, the first of which are Ekadasha Shatani. Puranjana had begotten 1,100 sons within the womb of his wife, and thus passed away half of his life. Actually, every man follows a similar process. If one lives for 100 years at the utmost, in his family life he simply begets children up the age of 50. Unfortunately, at the present moment, people do not live even 100 years. Nonetheless, they beget children up to the age of 60. Another point is that formerly people used to beget 100 to 200 sons and daughters. As will be evident from the next verse, King Puranjana not only begot 1,100 sons, but also 110 daughters. At the present moment, no one can produce such huge quantities of children. Instead, mankind is very busy checking the increase of population by contraceptive methods. We do not find in Vedic literatures that they ever used contraceptive methods, although they were begetting hundreds of children. Checking population by contraceptive method is another sinful activity, but in this age of Kali, people have become so sinful that they do not care for the resultant reactions of their sinful lives. King Puranjan lay down with his wife Puranjani and begot a large number of children, and there is no mention in these verses that he used contraceptive methods. According to the Vedic scriptures, the contraceptive method should be restrained in sex life. It is not that one should indulge in unrestricted sex life and avoid children by using some method to check pregnancy. If a man is in good consciousness, he consults with his religious wife, and as a result of this consultation with intelligence, one advances in his ability to estimate the value of life. In other words, if one is fortunate enough to have a good conscientious wife, he can decide by mutual consultation that human life is meant for advancing in Krishna consciousness and not for begetting a large number of children. Children are called parinama, or byproducts, and when one consults his good intelligence, he can see that his byproducts should be expansion of his Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. Again, this language requires some explanation, and that's why we have Bhagavatam classes. Okay, we will read also the next text, as this is the text for today, actually, text 7. Duhitri dashatar shatam pitri matri yashashkari shilaudharya kunopeta pauranjana prajapate. O Prajapati, King Prachini Bharashat, in this way King Puranjana also begot 100 daughters. All of these were equally qualified like the father and mother. Their behavior was gentle, and they possessed magnanimity and other good qualities. Purport. Children begotten under the rules and regulations of the scriptures generally become as good as the father and mother. But children born illegitimately mainly become Varnashankara. The Varnashankara population is irresponsible to the family, community, and even to themselves. Formerly, the Varnashankara population was checked by the observation of the reformatory method called Garbhadhana Sanskara, a child begetting religious ceremony. In this verse we find that although King Puranjan had begotten so many children, they were not Varnashankara. All of them were good, well-behaved children, and they had good qualities like their father and mother. Even though we may produce many good children, our desire for sex that is beyond the prescribed method is to be considered sinful. Too much enjoyment of any of the senses, not only sex, results in sinful activities. Therefore, one has to become a Swami or Goswami at the end of his life. One may beget children up to the age of 50, but after 50, one must stop begetting children and should accept the Vanaprastha order. In this way, he must leave home and then become a sannyasi. A sannyasi's title is Swami or Goswami, which means that he completely refrains from sense enjoyment. One should not accept the sannyas order whimsically. He must be fully confident that he can restrain his desire for sense gratification. King Puranjan's family life was, of course, very happy. As mentioned in these verses, he begot 1,100 sons and 110 daughters. Everyone desires to have more sons than daughters, and since the number of daughters was less than the number of sons, it appears that King Puranjan's family life was very comfortable and pleasing. End of purport, and that also requires some explanation. Hare Krishna. Om Jnana Kinanjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Namo Bistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Papanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So, in these two shlokas, text 6 and 7, of course, the main message, I guess, that we get from these shlokas or from this section of the Bhagavatam, that, what is the main message? What would you say? In a summary, in a nutshell?
He was happy.
He was happy, okay.
Sexual life is not the main goal of life.
Okay, sexual life is not the main goal of life. Yeah, it's not the main thing to strive for. And
it's good to produce byproducts when you can like lead them to a Krishna consciousness.
okay, it's good to produce children, as long they are, you know, becoming Krishna conscious. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Don't use contraceptive methods.
Don't use contraceptive methods.
And have children till certain age, and then leave family engagement.
Okay, have children till a certain age and then leave family life. Yeah. So from these, thank you for the summaries. From this we can understand, and of course this is again like our Vedic culture. For us it has become quite natural. None of we are Hare Krishnas and we living, practicing this lifestyle and reading these books. But for outsider, this is completely like, no, whoa, what is going on here? What is this? It's completely, completely in the different opposite direction, completely. It's like in Bhagavad Gita it describes like, it's like day and night, it's, what are we talking, This is super conservative, super conservative, like middle-age religiosity. That's what people would call it. And it's good. We need to be aware of this, but for us, it's kind of we find it. Why do we find it normal? Because if you look at it closely, it's actually natural. I mean, that's quite natural, actually. I mean, it seems that's how God has created the world, right? God didn't create the world and gave contraceptive methods. That was invented later. So for us, we find it's natural because we are God conscious. We're trying to see the world through the eyes of Shastra and through a Krishna conscious, through a spiritual way. But for ordinary people, this is very strange. I mean, and of course that says a lot about modern Western civilization, that it has become, it's gone very, very much away from what we would call natural life, right? Okay, let's try to unpack these two shlokas a little bit. So the first one, I mean, of course, beside of what I just said, it's also quite far out that the king begets, total at 1,210 children. Like, what? And you believe in this? This really happened? So that's another thing. Like Bhagavatam is always these far out descriptions. But it's explained here that because of course we understand this is a different yuga, it's a different time circle, it's a different area of the history of the world, and we understand that at that time people lived much longer and their bodies had much more. It says here virya or virat, and much more strength and lifespan, so they were able to have more children. But still, the point that Prabhupada makes here, the first one is that, or what the Bhagavatam makes, although he had so many children, by engaging in this business, as Prabhupada translated it, in this duty, in this activity, half of his life was gone. So there's another thing that the Bhagavatam stresses, that if one becomes too much absorbed in the worldly or activities, especially family life, then one can lose time, or one can lose the chance to absorb in Krishna consciousness. That's why it's recommended to have early marriage, to have early children, to do your duty nicely, and then towards the age of 50, you're done. You did your business, your duty, your duty of having children, of taking care of your children nicely with all your, what you can, your devotion and abilities. But at some point, then it comes a time where you need to renounce yourself and focus more on Krishna consciousness. So also this, in a modern Western civilization, everyone works very hard and with the aim to then enjoy even more once they become 65. No? That's the idea. But that's not. Now then, the other thing is, which Prabhupada emphasized in the purport a lot, is that in Vedic literature we don't find the use of contraceptive methods. And as I said, this is a very controversial topic in a sense. If you would make a survey, or how you say, an Umfrage, poll, yeah. Like most people would understand that this is good, this is required, this is needed, this is protective. It protects us, and it's a sign of our advancement. That we have it. It's very good, right? I remember this many years back. I was a child, and my mother. I grew up quite religious. We were in Catholic, Roman Catholic Church. And I remember how my mother once told us children that she was disappointed with the Pope. And I could understand her faith in the church. She lost her faith in the church at some point, and then she was less active she was quite active in the community, in the church, doing service, and at some point she kind of withdraw. And there's many reasons for that, but one reason was that there was the Pope. I think that time it was Pope what was his name? Paul II or something, from Poland. So I think he visited Africa, and then there was a huge crowd, thousands of people come and listen to the Pope, and then the Pope told everyone, contraceptive method is sinful, you shouldn't use it. Ooh, and it was a big scandal. Everyone spoke about it. How can the Pope say that they shouldn't use contraceptive methods? No, we live in a world where there is AIDS. People get so many diseases. We need to protect ourselves. How can the Pope say something like this? And he was criticized a lot. People lost faith in the Pope. But the Pope is in line with the Bhagavatam. Pope is in line with Prabhupada, for sure. Because the thing is, and Prabhupada says, the Vedic way to control sex life, to deal with this, to control the senses. That's how you should. That's the idea, no? And the religious leaders, they're meant to teach society how to regulate sex life and control sex life. And if you control sex life, then you don't need contraceptive methods, because people are sober and they know how to control their senses. But because we live in a society where they say, just go for it, just enjoy as much as you can, and in order to avoid, AIDS and diseases, and especially in order to avoid responsibility, having children, that's why you use contraceptive methods. And that's, that's against the nature of law. And it's because interesting. We spoke about this last week, that Krishna arranged, because Krishna is very merciful. We basically, if you understand why this world was created, the world was created because conditioned souls, they rebel against God, and they want to enjoy independently, right? Krishna is enjoying in the spiritual world. He's the center of enjoyment, the center of love. But then some, they want to live separate. They want to enjoy life separately from God. So God creates this world, and He gives us the opportunity to actually enjoy. And one of the main methods to enjoy in this world is sex life. Is the attraction between male and female, or the opposite sex. And Krishna is merciful. He makes it even pleasurable. Sex life is something that is gives a good feeling. So he gives that. But Krishna connects it with production. How is it? procreation of children. And that means there is responsibility involved. Yes, you may have sex life, but then as a natural result of sex life, you have children. And children means a lot of responsibility and sacrifice. And by that, your enjoying spirit is again kind of transformed. That's the idea. Because of your enjoying spirit, you want to have sex life, but as a result of sex, you have children, and there you need to learn to become selfless. So there is like and this is balancing it, right? And that would be the natural understanding how to go about. And in the next text and the next purport, Srila Prabhupada then speaks about Varna Shankara, or the Garbhadhana Sanskara, that, not only, on the top of what we already said, that in Vedic culture there is the Garbhadhana Samskara, which means a child begetting religious ceremony. And this becomes even more far out, like, in a sense of, how highly elevated Vedic culture was, that there's a certain period where men and women should unite, and then not only that, they should, according to Vedic scripture, they should get the permission from Guru. They should ask permission from Guru. Then they, with the help of an astrologer, they fix an auspicious day, and then they invite a priest to their home, and they invite their family and friends, and they perform a Garbhadhana Sanskara ceremony. It's a very public event. Dear friends, this night we try to beget a child, and we want to create an auspicious ceremony, like auspicious atmosphere. Please come. And then the priest, Swaha, makes this ritual. Then everyone goes home, and then they spiritually prepare themselves, and Prabhupada even advised that one should chant 50 rounds of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, or 64, just like absorb yourself, and then man and woman unite. And I read in a description by Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he says, then at a moment of impregnating the woman, the man then chants a Vedic mantra. So it shows it's a very very spiritually high elevated process, that even during the union of man and woman, the man is has such a consciousness, and woman also, but then they chant mantras, and in this way. And why did they do that? Because then a very elevated soul will be attracted, and that's the whole science, which of course nobody knows nowadays. But the Vedas describe that according to the consciousness of man and woman, when they unite, they attract a certain soul into that body, into that womb of the wife. So when they have a very high consciousness, of course that means with love and devotion, and they, it's wanted, and they want to have a child, and with that spiritual consciousness, then a very elevated soul will take birth. And of course the opposite is also true. If men and women just come together, like, as Prabhupada says, cats and dogs, without any consideration, then not very elevated people will, low-class souls will take birth. And that's called Varna Shankara. Varna Shankara means children, begotten without the desire to actually have children, or without the proper rituals or proper consciousness. And, well, guess the population of today's world, most probably 99% are Varna Shankara. Welcome to the age of Kali Yuga. And most probably we are also little Varna Shankaras. I don't know. I don't know. Whether your parents did a Garbhadhana Sanskara ceremony, or whether they had a very. If you actually were wanted and they really had a, then it's already good. But So that's all the very elevated understanding of Vedic, the sex life meant for Grihastha ashram. Any question or comment on that? Of course, one question that comes up, well, and when we take initiation, we take 4 vows, we take a vow to not have illicit sex, and we understand that the very strict definition of what is allowed is sex within the marriage, and then only for procreation of children. That's once a month. You can try it, and then according to the description we gave, ideally. In ISKCON we do have some, because we understand it's a very high standard, and in ISKCON we do have a discussion that is going on. Is there only one standard for this, or is there levels, and then one can progressively advance through the levels? And there's different opinion about that. And our GBC, who represents Srila Prabhupada's opinion or standards, has clearly kind of stays with the topmost standard and only one standard. The GBC's opinion is that there's only one standard and everything else is illicit. But I'm saying there is a discussion. There is gurus. I'm talking of sannyasi gurus who have thousands of disciples who disagree with that. Okay. Gurus who say that yes, of course, this is the highest standard Prabhupada wanted us to follow, but for a young couple that marry and come together, they might not be able to do it from the very beginning, and then to have sexuality within the marriage is already good. They're married, they're properly married. That's already also bona fide. And then of course the higher standards is only for having children. And then it's interesting. I heard an interesting discussion, like chanting the holy name. How should we chant the holy name? We should chant 16 rounds without offenses, right? Do you chant 16 rounds without offenses? Most probably not. No, mostly we chant, and then we chant on Nam Aparat, sometimes Nam Bhas, Nam Aparat. So there's so many stages of chanting. No, we can chant really focused, sitting down and chant with full attention and love and devotion, or we can just snick snack, finish our rounds, or chant while driving the car. There's different standards of chanting, but someone who is chanting maybe not so concentrated, he tries, but he's not so good in chanting. Is he still considered to be a devotee in good standing? Yeah, he's on a certain level, but he's a devotee in good standing. Or the other example is with prasadam. What does it mean to accept Krishna prasad? The highest level is you accept Krishna prasad offered in the temple on the altar by brahmanas and prepared by brahmanas. Cooks are also brahmanas, and they prepare with love and devotion, and the pujari offers with love and devotion. Krishna accepts it, and then we accept that prasadam. That's the highest aspect. But then sometimes we may travel and we're sitting in a train and we open a packet of chips, potato chips, and we say Vishnu, 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 right? And then we take some chips, and it's kind of accepted as, or don't take chips, just take an apple. You may take an apple, and then you just in your mind, you Krishna, please accept this apple. I understand it comes from you, So we eat apple, and it's considered to be acceptable, right? It's not the highest standard, but it's acceptable. So it seems that in other areas we do accept that there is different levels, but in sex life we only have one level, and that's the highest. So, there is some question whether that's really making sense. But of course I understand the GBC. The GBC want to just make sure that we set the highest standard, because otherwise it will be watered down, people will. So it's better to keep a high standard, and people anyway will not follow, not everyone is able to follow, but at least we have a high standard. But others argue, well, it would be better to be a bit more realistic and don't create guilt feelings in the devotees if they are not able to follow as clearly as it might be expected. Okay, that's one discussion. But one thing is clear: if we want to make advancement in Krishna consciousness, if we want to come closer to Radha and Krishna, and if we want to go back to Godhead in this lifetime, we have to give up sex desire, right? Do we all agree with that? So, whatever you do in your Grihastha ashram, at the end of the day, the desire needs to be given up. And of course, that's not only for the Grihastha, it's for everyone. And that's why this focus on the Vanaprastha ashram is also given. And it's described in this purport by Prabhupada. He says that any desire which it's too much, like too much enjoyment of any of the senses, not only sex, results in sinful activities. If you have anything that you want to enjoy, and if you overdo it, if you have too much of that enjoyment, it leads towards sinful life. And Prabhupada says that after the age of 50, one should stop and accept the Vanaprastha order of life. And that's something which is quite interesting, because it's not so much being emphasized, but it's actually very important that devotees understand, like the Grihastha ashram is very important, and it's very helpful for most devotees. It's the best situation, right? Jagannath Baladev Sudha Maharani ki. So because the Grihastha ashram gives that protection for both man and woman, and they are in a religious relationship, so that they can protect each other and can practice Krishna conscious as a team and help each other, it's the best situation for most. But this arrangement is temporary, and from the very beginning one should understand it's meant to be given up at some point. And Prabhupada usually says at the age of 50. There is some purpose Prabhupada says at the age of 45 already. Sex life should be given up by the age of 45, and then sometimes by 50. But after 50, certainly one should give it up. And then one should enter Vanaprastha. But then, what does it mean, Vanaprastha? Because when we read the Bhagavatam, what is described there? No man, Go to the forest. Good luck. Imagine, a couple, Hare Krishna married couple, they take Vanaprastha and go to the forest here in Zurich, and they dress themselves only in bark, tree bark, Baumrinde, and imagine, and they will live somewhere in a tree and only eat berries or something. No. I think the 20 Minutes newspaper would make an article, that some crazy fellows, they're living in a forest half naked or something. So it's not so practical nowadays to do that. So of course, from there we can understand, we cannot always take everything literally from the Bhagavatam. This was done in previous ages, but we need to take the essence, the spirit. And what is the spirit? The spirit is the renunciation of family life, and the focus on spiritual life, and the renunciation, the spirit of renunciation, the spirit of giving up the enjoying mood. And And also because in the Grihastha ashram you have there is a certain security. You know, you have an income. Lakshmi is there. You have the support of the family members. You have your home. You have your shelter. You have your house. So that all gives you, like a very protective. Grihastha ashram is a place where you feel protected. But then vanaprastha means to give up all that protection, that shelter, and depend on Krishna. That's another, and that's part of Sharanagati. Sharanagati means you surrender to Krishna, and surrender means you. One aspect is that you accept Krishna as your only maintainer and only protector. Right? You have faith. Actually, Krishna will take care. I don't have to myself make too many material arrangements to be, have my daily food and my roof, my shelter. I just worship Krishna and he will take care of me. That mood should become more in the vanaprastha ashram. I give up the security of the world and depend more on Krishna. And and then of course, we can say maybe women, usually they like to decorate themselves nicely and look attractive. Well, at some point, then maybe it's time to also renounce that a little bit. Maybe dress more simple. Skip the makeup, like that. So that mood of renunciation is supposed to be manifested at a certain age. And then usually Prabhupada gives different ways how to do or live a vanaprastha life in today's world. Do you remember what is a way to practice vanaprastha for a couple?
He's saying that we should not go to the forest, but we should join a Hare Krishna temple. Okay. Mm-hmm. We should go to a temple. You say we should even join a temple. Yeah. In one Prabhupada, when it's about going to the forest, he's saying today is not possible, so we should go to a temple community. Yeah.
Usually Prabhupada says go to a holy place and stay and live in that holy place, like Vrindavan. It's but go to the forest. Yes, go to the forest. Go to Vrindavan. That's a forest. No, Vrindavan is a forest. You should go to Vrindavan. And Prabhupada often he says that we specifically have established Krishna Balaram Mandir and Vrindavan is specifically meant for renunciates. It's not meant for family. Actually, and you should listen to lectures from Aindra Prabhu, very heavy. Aindra Prabhu says, Vrindavan is not meant for family. It's not meant for young girl and man. He kind of condemn. How you say? He doesn't. He points out that nowadays Vrindavan has become a place for mingling, meeting. If a young woman wants to find a good husband, they go to Vrindavan. It's a fact. Because Vrindavan is a meeting place. There's the MVT, and there's the Loi Bazaar, and then there's the Kirtan. So young people come there to look for a spouse, for a husband, wife. But Aindra was very heavy on that. He said, actually, Vrindavan is not meant for that. Vrindavan is meant for those who renounce. It's meant for the vanaprasthis, actually, and the brahmachari and sannyasis. It's meant to go and to live a renounced life and really absorb in Krishna consciousness. That Vrindavan is meant for that main focus. Vrindavan is especially meant for retirement, like spiritual retirement, living there. So that's one way. You just go to Vrindavan or Mayapur and then you live there. And then that's your vanaprastha life. Another thing is you can go to travel. The second option is you travel to holy places and become purified by visiting different holy places. That means you still have your home, because going to Vrindavan means you give up everything. You'll give up your home, you just go to Vrindavan, you live there. But if you still want to keep your house and your home, okay, but then you travel. From time to time, you go on pilgrimage, and then you come back. But then again you go on pilgrimage. That's another way you can live your vanaprastha life. Yeah, and the third option, this is from a lecture by His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj. He said, and the third option is, you may be not able to always go to holy places to India, but then you just travel wherever you are. You travel to other countries, temples, and you preach. You're a senior member of the community. You preach. You become a preacher. That can also be vanaprasthi. Also together, you can, as a couple, you can give seminars or classes. But the main point is focus on more spiritual life and less family life. That means sex life is 0, and having too much to do with the children and grandchildren and this and that. Kind of reducing that. And then, if for the man, if he is spiritually strong enough and fixed, he might even take sannyas at some point. If the wife is taking care nicely, and if the wife gives the blessings, then you may take sannyas also. But as Prabhupada says, sannyas shouldn't be taken whimsically. He must be fully confident that he can restrain his desire for sense gratification. If you take sannyas, you have to be fully sure. So, to conclude, the main thing is that Vedic culture always encourages giving up sex life. That's always the main focus. And I've read this before, but I will just read part of it. I find it quite powerful. This is a poem written by His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami. And it's called "Tomorrow I Must Meet Srila Prabhupada." Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was known for writing these prayers and poems, and very, very honestly sharing it with the world. So I will just read it. You get to understand the mood. Today is the last day of my life. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was about to leave his body, so he had this meditation. Tomorrow I must meet Srila Prabhupada. What will I say to him? What will I say? What will he say to me? It's a nice meditation. Okay, I give up my body and I meet my spiritual master. Will he be satisfied with my service? No. Because we live our lives hoping to please our Guru. I will say to Prabhupada, I'm Ganesham Das, the one who distributed your sets of books to the academic communities. Ganesham was the initiated name given by Prabhupada, and it was his main service, distributing Prabhupada's books. Srila Prabhupada will say, very nice, but have you given up sex desire for me? I will say, I've never broken any of the regulative principles, and I've faithfully chanted over 16 rounds every single day since I joined the movement, never once missed. Srila Prabhupada will say, very nice, but have you given up sex desire? I will say, I have maintained a program of fasting all day on every Ekadashi, especially from liquids and all foods for most of my life as a devotee. Srila Prabhupada will say, very nice, but have you given up sex desire for me? I will say, I have also maintained a program of eating mainly only once for most of my life as a devotee. Srila Prabhupada will say, very nice, but have you given up sex desire for me? I will say, I have for most of my devotional life maintained sleeping less than 6 hours a day. Srila Prabhupada will say, very nice, but have you given up sex desire for me? I will say, Srila Prabhupada, I have faithfully read all of your books, and I'm trying now to distribute them in many countries where there is neither paper nor printed press available. And Prabhupada will say, very nice, but have you given up sex desire? I will say, I preserved as your GBC member, responsible for the largest number of countries in the world, 50, which have been the most poorest in the world. Srila Prabhupada will say, very nice, but have you? But how about sex desire? And the poem goes on.
That's the end.
It goes on. It just goes on. Well, the end is, then I remember I still have a few hours to surrender everything to you, as today I die and tomorrow I must meet you. I'm this insignificant beggar who is quickly running out of time, but by your mercy I have the last chance to make the greatest offering, to offer you myself in an uncontaminated state, free of all sex desire, so as to be a perfect instrument for your mission. Hare Krishna. So what does it mean? And that's relates to what my Guru Maharaj said. One of the last statement that my Guru Maharaj said was, at the end of the day, at the end of your life, it's not about how many temples you have built, how many devotees you have made, how many books you have distributed, how much money you have collected. It's only about how pure you have become in your heart. It's about purity at the end of the day. And of course, if you're pure, you will distribute many books, you will open many temples, and you will all do these things. But the main thing is, how pure have you become? And that's the message that Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj gives us also. Because Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was an extremely powerful preacher, and he did so much for Prabhupada. But he realized himself at the end of his life, what actually is most important? How much have I actually become pure? And because that purity will be the most pleasing to Srila Prabhupada. If I can offer myself to Prabhupada, I'm your instrument. I have become fully Krishna conscious, and I have given up that spirit of I am the enjoyer, I am the controller. No, I'm the house, I'm your servant. If that purity has come into the heart, then Guru is pleased, and that's the most important. And in order to achieve that, we need to regulate our sex life, whether we are in whatever ashram we are. I mean, there is 4 ashrams, in 3 there is no sex life. And there's the Grihastha ashram where you can kind of regulate sex life. But that needs to be done, and we should always keep the goal in mind that at the end of the day we want to become pure and just become lovers of Krishna, and then give up that lust and develop that love for Krishna. And having that big goal in our mind, then maybe we get the strength by the mercy of Guru and Krishna to give up these desires and become pure. Okay, Hare Krishna. Any comments, thoughts on this topic?
At the end of the 10 offenses, it says it's also an offense to not have complete faith in the holy name and to maintain material attachments. So I'm wondering, maybe you can explain what is the relationship between desire for sense gratification, then actually engaging in sense gratification, and the attachment. So what's the relationship?
Yes, it's a good question. One thing is we understand philosophy properly, and we develop also desire. Yes, I want to become pure. I want to give up sex desire, but I'm weak. And most probably that's the case of many devotees, that they are simply weak, and in a sense of they might not be able to live such a pure life yet. But that in itself, it's kind of okay. I mean, what can you do? You can only practice from the level you are, right? You can't change it. You can only start your devotional service from where you are, and then take the next step, and the next step, and the next step. And that's when you study the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also, explained. He doesn't specifically speak about sex life, but Krishna speaks about performing devotional service, and he says that, the best is to always think about me, like that your mind is completely absorbed in you, and you just dedicate your life to me, and that's basically pure devotional service. But if you cannot do so, then engage in regulated devotional service, which is Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. If you cannot do that, well, then what are the next steps? I think you work for me. You engage your activity and you work for me. You cultivate knowledge. You meditate. Krishna gives different steps. So from there we can understand that Krishna understands there is something which is the topmost that we should strive for. But then we need to see where we are, and then where we are, we take the next step. Now, if we are weak and have fall downs, in a sense we are not able to follow the principles as we should, there's two ways we can deal with it. One way is we can say, well, this process doesn't work, or Prabhupada did a mistake, this philosophy is not proper, so let's change the philosophy. That's one way you can approach it, and that's not how we should do it. And the other way is to just admit I'm weak. And the philosophy is right, and Prabhupada gave the proper process, but I'm just not able to follow it, and humbly accept it. And then, as is described, there is this famous shloka in the 11th canto where it's described that such a devotee then, although he sincerely tries to follow devotional service, sometimes he may, out of weakness, has a fall down. But then he laments, he sincerely regrets, but then he happily continues in his devotional service. So it's interesting, it's both. It's sincerely regretting, and Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur comments that he's really like crying, like I'm such a fallen person, laments, but then also continues, and it's not that you beat up yourself for the rest of your life, but then afterwards you happily continue in Krishna consciousness, and just try. And there was this story. There was a monastery, and everyone said that this is an amazing monastery. The very advanced monks lived there. So someone went there and visited. And he observed the monks for 3 days, and then after 3 days he went to the Abba, you say, to the head master, head priest. I heard that you are very advanced and special monks, but I don't know. You're doing everything like normal. You're eating, you're praying like others also. So what's so special? And he said, well, we practice and we fall down, and then again we stand up again, and then we practice and we fall down and we stand up again. And that's what makes us special. What makes us special is that we stand up again, each time. and that's actually what is special, and that's what makes you progress. You just get up and go on, Because many, they lose their hope, they lose their faith, their enthusiasm, and then they give up. They give up devotional service, they give up spiritual life, they run away, and I can't do it, I need to enjoy, and then they go. But if you're sincere, then you just continue, even though it's maybe difficult, maybe you slip, you have some fall down, but you just continue. But of course, then you try to be sincere, and then this maintaining material attachment, if you just maintain the attachments and you don't do anything about it, then it's an offense. But if you sincerely try to work on yourself and improve, and actually improve himself, then okay. And of course, there's always like if you practice and fall down for 30 years and you don't make any progress, that's not the idea. The idea is that you actually make progress. Also, right? Anyone likes to add, comment? You seem to agree, or?
I have a question.
Yes.
Because when you read this prayer of Bhakti Tirtha Swami, no one comes through what you also said at the end of the day. It's